Good evening, El Monte City School District families, and welcome to the opening of the 21-22 school year town hall. Buenas tardes, familias del Distrito Escolar del Monte, y bienvenidos a la Junta de Apertura del Año Escolar 21-22. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so excited to welcome each and every one of you back as we reopen our schools. With that, we know that you have many questions, and our goal for this evening is to answer as many of those questions and make sure that you are set up for success for the start of the school year. Tonight's presentation will go from 6 to 7 p.m. We want to thank you in advance for many of you that submitted questions to the Google form link that was provided. If you have some more questions this evening, you can submit additional questions on Parent Square, on the YouTube streaming channel, and as well as the Google link. And we will try our very best to answer those questions this evening. In the event that we're not able to answer your questions tonight, please be on the lookout for updates on Parent Square, as well as an FAQ sheet on our website. This evening, I'd like to introduce our team, El Monte City School District's team that's done just marvelous works in the past few months getting ready for the opening of the school year, beginning with the Deputy Superintendent of Personnel and Administrative Service, Mr. Steve Sollenbach, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Ms. Virginia Castro, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Mr. Jose Herrera. Additionally, we have our new Director of Student Support Services, Mr. Roberto Lopez Mena, and our Executive Administrator at the Jeff Seymour Family Center, Mrs. Cristina Davila. As you know, in our welcome back letter a few weeks ago, we announced the reopening of our schools. We will begin, the first day of school is August 25th, and we're excited to open with 5 days of instruction. We're excited to resume our full instructional minutes. And with that, we're also going to be sharing with you this evening all of the safety protocols that we have put in place to ensure the safety of our students and our families. And we're going to talk about the social emotional support that we are providing to our families. Our school priorities have not changed. They remain the same. Next slide, please. The health and well-being of our students and staff remains our #1 priority in our district. We continue to follow the guidance of the health experts, such as the State of California, Los Angeles County Office of Education, Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, to determine best steps and what's best for our community. We're also committed to high-quality, data-driven instruction, and our focus on relationships and social emotional support has never been more important. As we reopen this school year, we want you to know that we're going to be a little bit more conservative to start the year. We understand that there are many fears in our community, and we understand that the one thing that we all have in common is ensuring the safety of our students and our staff. Therefore, this evening, you're going to hear a presentation that's going to provide you with all of the details regarding our reopening, as well as a plan for independent study for families that choose to go that option. Mr. Sollenbach?
Good evening, everyone, and I'm pleased to spend a few minutes and go over some of the safety protocols that we have put in place. Just let's start by sharing that all school districts are guided by our local and our state county health departments. They determine what protocols must be put in place. And so for us, it's our local Los Angeles County Department of Public Health guidance, and they state what is required, and they also provide recommendations for all districts. And as Dr. Garcia said, we're going to be coming into the school year taking a very cautious approach, ensuring that we're implementing some very stringent safety protocols, and then reevaluating them as the school year goes on. So our first component is face masks. And so as we start this school year, we're going to be requiring that face masks are required both indoors and outdoors for all individuals, whether they're vaccinated or not. Some differences you may see in the outdoor areas is that we will make sure that we will have mask-free zones where students and adults can move into and safely take off their mask because we know that they're going to want that breath of fresh air now and then. So each school site will have a mask-free zone. When it comes to our PE programs when we are implementing an activity that allows students to space out safely under the direct supervision of our PE teachers. Students will be allowed to unmask for that activity. But if there are activities that require them to be in close proximity of one another, then masks will be required with scheduled mask-free times within it as well. Our classrooms and indoor offices will continue to have the portable high-efficient air cleaner machines that we put in last spring, and that will actually help to improve our indoor air quality. These units are HEPA filter certified and turn over the rooms at least 4 times in every hour. Another safety measure that we're going to put into place is ensuring that our desks are spaced out to the distance that we can in order to completely accommodate and allow all of our students to return. And while not a requirement by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health protocols, we will still continue all of our plastic and plexi shield barriers around each of our desks, just as another layer of safety for our students and our staff. So we know that hygiene is of key importance, especially not just within regards to COVID, but also just the flu season. And so we were going to make sure that all of our sinks are fully stocked with soap and paper towels. They'll be checked every evening by our custodians and make sure that they're stocked for the next day. We have plenty of supplies, not only at our school sites, but in our warehouse as well, which you'll hear about in a few minutes. Our heating and ventilation and air conditioning system, our HVAC systems are set to maximize the indoor and outdoor fresh air exchange. Over the summer, our maintenance department went through each of them as well, and they did all of the required maintenance and cleaning to ensure that they're ready for the start of the school year. For those of you that returned to us in spring, you remember that we did a daily self-screening through our Parent Square app. While the daily screening is no longer required, we are going to still continue a screening, but we're going to do it in a different format. So all students and employees will be reminded each morning to complete a daily self-screening with the required screening or symptoms that they need to check for. And they will self-assess themselves. And if they are exhibiting any of those symptoms, they are to not report to the school site, but to contact the office. For our employees, they would actually then contact their supervisor. As we get to our entrances for each school site, while not required, we still will continue with our temperature screenings as another layer of precaution. And then we will also be ensuring that we have signage at each entrance, again, with the symptom check protocol. So again, another layer of checking to ensure that everyone is conducting their own self-check. And then also signage reminding everyone to wear their mask as soon as they step on campus. So some of the questions we have been getting in regards to COVID and our return is our testing protocols and vaccinations. And so we're pleased to share that we have created an exposure management process that has a COVID-19 random testing component. And so we were fortunate enough to receive a $1.2 million grant through the Los Angeles County Office of Education and Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, which will allow us to implement this random asymptomatic testing. We'll be working with our partners with which is East Valley Community Health, which has a location here in El Monte. And what they will be doing is they will be coming out to our school sites every other week, and they will be conducting random sample testing of any unvaccinated student. You may have heard the governor's announcement yesterday in regards to school employees. And so we will be making sure that all of our school employees that are unvaccinated receive weekly testing. And so that actually allows us to free up even more of the spots for our students in regards to the random sample testing. Vaccinations is another key component to helping the spread and the impact of COVID in our schools. And so we will continue to work with our local partners and provide opportunities for anyone to receive them. Recently, we've been having some weekend vaccination pop-up clinics at some of our school sites, and so we will continue to share those through our Parent Square app and through our various other social media platforms, and be able to provide our families and our community as many opportunities for vaccination if that's what they choose to do. The other question we've been getting in regards to COVID is contact tracing. And so contact tracing for the El Monte City School District is nothing new. We've been doing this since last year. And so what contact tracing is the process that we are required to follow when we are made aware that someone has tested positive and was on one of our school sites or district sites. And so that process starts with understanding the definition of what a close contact is, because that's what we must follow when we actually determine if someone is a close contact or not. So the definition states that anyone who is within 6 feet of a confirmed positive case for more than 15 minutes in a 24-hour period. So to break that down, if you were within 6 feet of someone who maybe has a symptom, you would not be considered a close contact. They would actually have to have a confirmed positive test in order for us to then put in the contact tracing element. So what's required of all districts is that when we are made aware of a confirmed positive case, which was on one of our district sites, whether it be an employee or a student, or even a visitor, a parent and so on, contact tracing begins immediately, and that's in order to determine if there was anyone who was considered a close contact with that positive case per the CDC definition. The other requirement that through this process is that every individual who is on the site at the same time as the person who is the confirmed positive case would be required to receive a notification. And so we would be sending out notifications to any of our families and employees that were on the same site as that person that tested positive, basically explaining that they were on the site and that they were not identified as a close contact, but to provide them information in regards to what we're doing at the school site to continue to improve our safety and also our cleaning. If you were identified as a close contact, we would actually be reaching out to you. So if you're a parent, we would be reaching out to you if your child was a close contact, or if you're an employee, we would be reaching out to the employee. And through that, we would actually be discussing what you would need to do for your next steps, whether it involves quarantine, testing, and so on. So as I mentioned, all confirmed close contacts will be contacted directly from one of our district personnel and provided information regarding their next steps, which are all based on the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health Exposure Management protocols. And so there are different protocols or requirements based on your vaccination status. And so for anyone who is unvaccinated and determined a close contact, they would be required to quarantine for 10 days. And so long as they're not exhibiting any symptoms, they could return back to the school site on day 11, but they would need to monitor themselves. If they begin to show symptoms or if they test positive, then they would have to stay out the entire 14 days. For anyone who's vaccinated, so for our 12 and older students that possibly are vaccinated and our employees, so long as they are asymptomatic or not showing any symptoms at all, they are actually able to return back to the school site immediately. And that is per the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health exposure management protocols. But they would need to monitor themselves, and it would be recommended that they take a COVID test after day 4, just as a precautionary measure. And then for anyone who has who has had a confirmed laboratory positive test themselves in the last 90 days and is identified as a close contact, because they are considered to have the antibody within their system, they actually would not be required to quarantine or to receive any testing. And then the question sometimes comes up is what happens for a student in a classroom who may be quarantined. And so if any students are quarantined, and aside from the entire class being quarantined, if it's an individual student, they would be assigned to our traditional sense of an independent study program, where their classroom teacher would provide them with assigned work in order for them to complete, because it would only be a 10-day quarantine period.
Thank you, Mr. Sollenbach. So we have purchased many supplies to assist our staff and students to safely return to campus. You see a picture there of our warehouse where we have adequate safety protective equipment. All of our schools will have adequate face coverings, face shields. All classrooms will have hand sanitizers and disinfectant wipes inside the classrooms. We have gloves for staff, medical grade masks, and the like. And in addition, we will have adequate soap and paper towels to make sure that students can frequently wash their hands. You see in some of the pictures in the presentation, our facilities team has installed additional hand washing stations throughout the campus and bottle filling stations that students can fill up their water bottles from. So our schools will have adequate amounts of personal protective equipment for students and staff because we want to ensure the safety of all. Signage will be present on our campuses, um, promoting physical distancing, hand washing, reminding about the symptom checks across the campus to assist with the safe reopening. For our parents, since if you need assistance in taking the temperatures of your students, please reach out to your school. We have purchased lots of oral thermometers that we are looking to provide to families in need. If there is a need to take the temperature of your child in the home and you don't have the equipment to do so, please reach out to your school and we will gladly provide you with the oral thermometer so you can utilize with your students, with your children. Cleaning and disinfecting plans will continue to remain in place. We've worked with our custodians in our schools to establish cleaning schedules that permit and allow for daily cleaning of classrooms and desks, multiple cleaning opportunities throughout the day of high-touch areas such as restrooms, um, door handles, office, cafeteria areas, and we'll be fogging all of our spaces, indoor spaces, at least once a week. You see a picture there of one of the equipments that we have. Our schools are equipped with multiple of these fogging units that they will be utilizing at least on a weekly basis to go through and fog the indoor spaces. So there will be more frequent cleaning on our campuses, making sure that we don't overuse cleaning products and making sure that we maintain a very clean and safe campus. And you can see a picture there of some of the hand washing stations that we've installed across our campuses to promote more access to hand washing for our students and staff. Meals will continue to be served in individually wrapped packaging. We are hopeful that in the future we can welcome back salad bars, but for the time being, for the safety of all, we'll continue with our individually packed meals that we will be offering up to our students. To the extent possible, schools will be extending their lunch hours, and you see an example there of a potential school lunch schedule, making sure that we have different grade levels eating or playing at different times so we can lessen the amount of students and children present in the same area to make sure that we can allow for greater physical distancing. So schools will be utilizing various areas across our campus, the lunch shelters, the cafeterias, outdoor eating areas to maintain proper physical distancing during feeding time. And the question has come up regarding breakfast, and we will continue offering our breakfast in the classroom for our students, ensuring that every student has a adequate distancing and the desk shield to offer added protection.
Good evening. My name is Virginia Castro, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Thank you so much for joining us. As Dr. Garcia shared, the well-being of our students is our utmost priority. But this year, not only is our focus going to be on academics, it's also going to be on the social and emotional support of our students, parents, and staff. We're aware that this year is unlike every other year, and we know that our students may come to us with fear or anxiety, and we have been preparing all summer to anticipate some of these needs. One of the things that we've done is hire counselors that will be working at our school sites to offer extra support to our students and our parents. We're also going to be rolling out a system of support, and we're going to be training our teachers in the summertime to be able to identify some of the needs that our students have in the classroom and providing them with strategies to address these needs right away. And our district goals remain the same. Our district vision here in the El Monte City School District is that we will be an innovative school district in which students achieve at their highest potential surrounded by an engaged community that is proud and supportive of its educational system. And our mission here in the El Monte City School District is that in partnership with the students, families, and the community, we cultivate leadership, creativity, and educational excellence. By creating multiple opportunities for learning, we develop students' unique abilities to succeed and contribute positively in our diverse society. And we are going to continue doing that as soon as our doors open on August 25th. However, we are aware that some families are very concerned about sending their students back. And in fact, our governor passed AB130, which is legislation that requires school districts to offer an independent studies option. So we're going to be speaking to you a little bit about that option this evening. So AB 130 is the new state legislation for independent studies, and it requires all districts, including EMCSD, to offer an independent study option to students and families whose health would be at risk by in-person instruction. So the option to select independent study is determined by the parent or guardian, and our district must provide opportunities for live interaction and synchronous instruction. The new state legislation for independent studies requires that we notify parents or guardians of this option to enroll your child in in-person instruction or independent study, which is why you received the notification for this evening's meeting. Parents have a right to request a student, parent, and educator conference meeting before enrolling or disenrolling your student from the independent study program. Students' rights regarding procedures for enrolling, disenrolling, and re-enrolling in the independent study program, and receive synchronous and asynchronous instructional time that a student will have access to as part of the independent study program. So what is independent studies? The independent study program is an alternative program to traditional classroom instruction. The independent study program is not the same as the 2021 distance learning program that we offered during the pandemic. The independent study program is primarily an asynchronous model, which means that students are working by themselves or with their caregiver, which requires students the opportunity to work independently without a teacher for the majority of the day and through the support of a caregiver at home instead. Live interactions and synchronous learning, which means learning with the teacher, will occur during short time blocks in the morning. So one of the requirements that our school district had to comply with is creating a learning agreement. So a learning master agreement must be signed within 30 days from the start of a child being enrolled in the program. The parent must identify independent study as an optional educational alternative that they prefer, and the agreement will also include the duration of the program, how students will submit assignments, and how academic progress will be reported and communicated with the parent or guardian. And it will also explain to the parents that students need to submit daily assignments to their independent studies teacher. Here is an example of our written master agreement, and it indicates all the details that I just shared earlier. So the duration, the classes, how the child is progressing in the class, and when their assignments are due. The teacher, the parent, and the child will sign the written master agreement. So instructional schedule requirements were provided to us by the Department of Education as well as the Los Angeles County Office of Education. And for students in grades TK through third, students will receive daily synchronous instruction, meaning they will receive instruction directly from their teacher virtually. Daily live interaction and synchronous instruction at least weekly for students in grades 4th through 8th. And asynchronous time, which is a time that they'll be spending independently or with their caregiver, will depend on the grade, but will range within 3 to 5 hours per day. Instructional minutes, synchronous and asynchronous, are broken down by the grade levels. So for TK through kindergarten, live interaction or instructional time will be approximately 2 hours, and the amount of asynchronous time or independent work working with the caregiver will be approximately an hour and 15 minutes for a total instructional minutes of 235 minutes. For first grade through third grade, 130 minutes will be provided by the teacher in live interaction or synchronous instruction, and 180 minutes will be conducted of asynchronous independent work for a total of 310 minutes. For grades 4 through 6, 130 minutes with the teacher, 195 minutes of independent asynchronous time for a total of 325 minutes. And for 7th and 8th grade, 2 hours and 10 minutes of synchronous instruction or live interaction, and 3 hours and 32 minutes of asynchronous or independent work for a total of 342 minutes. So here's a sample of a TK through third grade independent study schedule. So the morning activities will begin with attendance, a social emotional wellness activity, a wellness check, and progress monitoring. The teacher will then have synchronous learning time, approximately 1 hour with their teacher of record to assign weekly assignments, review content, and do a live interactive teaching. And then 3 to 5 hours per day with their caregiver. A sample of 4th through 8th grade independent study schedule indicates that there will be live interaction in the morning, attendance, SEL activity, wellness check, progress monitoring, and then weekly synchronous learning for each course of record. 6th grade course can take place on any day of the week. 30 minutes to 1 hour of teacher of record teaching in every single content area. So English, math, science, an elective, PE, and another elective. And then asynchronous learning between 4 to 6 hours a day with their caregiver. So what happens if a child is not thriving in the independent study program? The independent study administrator who's supervising the teacher shall promptly address the concerns when the terms of the written agreement are not being met. And the following will occur. A letter to the student and or parent or guardian will be sent. A meeting between the parent and the child and or counselor will be held. A meeting between the student and the independent study administrator, including the parent guardian if appropriate, and an increase in the amount of time that the student works under direct supervision. So we have a tiered re-engagement system of support, and some of the strategies for students that will trigger this re-engagement to occur are when they're absent 3 school days or 60% of the instructional days in a school week, when they're in violation of the student's written agreement, or when the child desires to return to in-person instruction from the independent study program. Engagement strategies can include verification of current information, notification to the parents of lack of participation within 1 school day of absences or lack of participation, meaning the parents will be notified if their children are not engaging, an outreach plan to assess the student's needs, a pupil parent educator conference, and a plan to transition the students to in-person instruction when requested. So this request takes 5 days. If a parent wants to transfer their child once they're in the independent study program into in-person program, they will be given a 5-day window to make that happen, and vice versa. If a child is enrolled in in-person instruction and the parent prefers to have them participate in the independent study program, there's a 5-day window where that will take place. So some considerations for families that we ask you to think about is, does my child demonstrate the motivation, commitment, organizational skills, and academic skills necessary to work independently? So you may have observed some of these character traits or behaviors when your child was in distance learning in the spring. Was my child successful in distance learning in the 2020-21 school year? Is my child working at or above grade level? Am I or my child's caregiver able to commit to supporting my child's learning 3 to 5 hours daily? And would my child's health be put at risk by in-person instruction? So if this resonates with you and your family and you feel that you would like to participate in our Independent Studies program, you may begin signing up for the Independent Studies program on August 13th. Parents will have until August 20th to sign up for the Independent Studies program. But again, anytime during the school year, this will be an option for all families. Student Parent Educator Conferences will begin the week of August 16th. And there is a link that is attached to the website and the Parent Square invitation that you received, where you can fill out a form and request a conference for next steps and consideration in the Independent Study program. We will now turn over to our question and answer session. Thank you very much.
All right, members of the cabinet, we do have a few questions lined up in regards to different facets of us opening back up. The first question is actually in regards to independent study and the difference between distance learning opportunities. So the question is, why was the district not allowed to provide distance learning opportunities like they did last year?
Mr. Sollenbach?
Yes, I will. So districts were required through legislation to actually return to in-person instruction. The difference being with AB130, which we've just shared some of the components tonight, being an option that came about in the middle of summer. And so the option for the continued distance learning programs, which we saw last year, were not allowed for districts to consider, and therefore we are back in person completely with now an option of the AB130 independent study program.
Next question, would independent study apply to Mandarin or Spanish dual language immersion programs?
So unfortunately, at this time, we're not able to provide a dual language program via independent study because we don't have the staffing and we don't have the numbers. So it would be very difficult for a teacher to have to teach multiple grade levels of the language. So the legislation does state wherever feasible, the district can offer it. At this time, we are not able to offer a dual language program via independent study.
Our next question for Mr. Herrera regarding breakfast and school lunches. It's kind of a two-parter. Will breakfast be available to students? And the second part is, will students still be allowed to bring food to campus?
Yes, we will be providing free meals to all students that are attending our classes in person. For those parents or students that are participating in independent study, we will continue to provide meal opportunities for them so they can access nutritious meals. For our students that are attending in person on campus, they will have the opportunity to eat breakfast and lunch on campus at no cost. And as always, we permit, the schools have their school by school specific policies, but we always allow snacks and as long as the food is nutritious for students to come onto campus with snacks. Now, because we do offer meals to all of our students at no cost, we don't necessarily see too many of our students bringing snacks or meals onto campus. So we're happy to continue that service, and rest assured that any parents or students that participate in independent study, we will continue to offer meal opportunities so that those students can access nutritious meals.
The next question, how will independent study impact services noted in IEP, and will students still receive the same services like speech and have time with aides?
So traditionally, students with an IEP were not allowed to participate in independent studies for the same reasons that it's difficult to provide related services when it's through independent studies. However, with the new legislation, every student must be considered for independent study, and every family must be given that opportunity. And so the trigger now is for the parent to request an IEP meeting so that the team can decide and make a recommendation on how to best serve the student through independent study, and also for the district to determine if a FAPE is reasonable within independent studies. So services would be discussed, including aid time or speech through that IEP process.
We have another question here related to independent study. If I put my child in the independent study program, will my child need to use their own personal computer?
All students receive a Chromebook from our district. So even if the child is in the independent study program, a Chromebook would be provided. And if a hotspot is needed, a hotspot would be provided as well.
Next question in regards to independent study. Can asynchronous work anytime be done anytime during the day, or must it be completed during school hours?
One of the requirements of our master student agreement will be that the children need to return or submit their school work by the end of that school day. So the expectation is for the child to complete the asynchronous work during the day.
All right, our next question here, independent study again. Can a student return to in-person during the school year if they are in independent study? Are there limitations? I know we did discuss that on one of the slides.
Yes, parents will be given 5 days. So if a parent of a child decides that the independent study program is no longer meeting their needs, or they no longer want to participate in the program and they wish to return in person, the district will have 5 days to place that child back into an in-person setting.
We have another question related to school operations. Will on-site after-school programs still be available?
Absolutely. We have a wonderful partnership with our Learn partners. Our Aspire program will be offered as it was in the past, and students who attend Durfee will be going to Kids Campus. So that information will be shared shortly with the parents and all of the school sites. And applications will be sent home, I believe, as well.
Our next question has to do with school uniforms. So the question is, what are the requirements this year in regards to uniforms?
That's a very popular question. We've received many calls regarding uniforms. Each of our schools has a dress code policy as well as uniform standards. However, just know that we will be flexible. We know that there are different situations and scenarios throughout our community, and we want to make sure that we are working alongside our school community to ensure the success of all students. So in the coming days, you will be receiving welcome letters from all school principals, and they will provide information regarding first week of school, different pickup and drop-off times, as well as uniform information. If you need any assistance with uniforms, please give us a call. Please contact Christina Davila at the Jeff Seymour Family Center, or give us a call here at the district office. And also know that there will be flexibility as we start the school year with uniforms.
Our next question is in regards to independent study again. Will students who opt in for independent studies be able to get the help they need if they were to need extra help from either an aide or school site counselor and whatnot?
Our goal is to ensure that all students succeed regarding of the learning option that they're enrolled in. So part of the check-ins with the teacher and part of the check-ins with the independent study coordinator will be to ensure that the child is thriving. So the parents would receive a notification if their child is not succeeding, and we will do everything we can in terms of intervention and even providing extra direct instruction if that's what's necessary.
Next question, will the district be providing assistance to help submit these applications for independent study? This has come from some parents who might not know how to navigate exactly how to go about the process.
Yes, you can contact our Office of Student Support Services, and we will make sure that parents who need assistance or if they need a printed form, we will provide that for them.
Another question in regards to independent study. Do students need to qualify for independent study or is it voluntary?
So if a parent wishes to participate or have their child participate in the independent study program, it's the parent's choice. What we do ask is for parents to keep in mind those considerations that we shared earlier, whether this is in the best interest of their child, to consider whether the child was engaged during our distance learning offerings, if the child is at grade level. And we understand that there are some health concerns that may prevent some children from returning to school, but it is ultimately the parent's choice to enroll their child in the independent study program.
We have a question in regards to students in the classroom. How many students will be in a particular classroom?
So with the recent guidance from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, they do not give a distance requirements. We are actually beginning to look at our rooms and space the desks as far apart as we possibly can, again, with our desk barriers and our shields. But we can have anywhere from 20 to 30 students in a classroom, depending on what grade level it is or what classroom it is. And so we're back to our normal classroom sizes, just as we had in years past. But again, with the extra safety precautions, with spacing the desks as much as possible, along with the barriers that we have in place.
Another question in regards to independent study. Does independent study follow the same curriculum as in-person instruction?
Yes, we wanted to make the transition as seamless as possible from our language arts program and our math program. So if a child is going in and out of the independent study program back into in-person instruction, the curriculum will be the same and the pacing should be the same. There may be a difference in the content areas, so history, social studies, and the electives and some of the enrichment activities might look a little bit different. But as far as our English language development program, our language arts program, and our math, the curriculum will be the same.
I have a question here in regards to COVID-19. If an outbreak is determined, will the schools be shut down?
So that's a great question. So first I'll just share that we're required to follow the exposure management plan, which was designed and implemented by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And they actually determine what an outbreak is, and they actually provide the guidance and the directives to schools in regards to what has to happen. And so with a single case or two cases, we obviously will identify the close contacts, but we still also have to report all of this information to the County Department of Public Health. When we get a third case, and what they say are linked cases. So if we have 3 cases within a 14-day period that are linked, which means they did not have any outside contact or home contact, so most likely they were transmitted at school between the 3 of them, then that would be considered an outbreak. But yet, even though it's considered an outbreak, we are still under the guidance and direction of the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. So they would look at the particular situation, they would look at which classes these students may have been in, the potential for further exposure, and then they would make the determination in regards to whether maybe just a classroom or 2 classrooms have to quarantine or potentially the entire school. It would just be dependent upon the guidance and the actual situation at hand.
Yeah, we have another question in regards to COVID-19. How often will students be tested, and will vaccinated students need to be tested for COVID?
So currently, any students that are vaccinated will not be required to be tested. In regards to our testing program that we're implementing, we actually, with our grant that we received, we're going to be able to do some random sample testing of unvaccinated students at our school sites. That will take place every other week. So our partners will visit a school site every other week. And we will be able to test anywhere from 20 to 25 students during this process. So we will not be testing every single unvaccinated student through our process, but we will be doing what is considered random sampling through a variety of different grade levels in order to just get a feel and determine if there's potential outbreaks taking place.
We have another question here in regards to independent study. If a child is in independent study, would they be able to complete coursework ahead of time?
So that's difficult to answer because I'm not sure what the coursework is or who the teacher is, but I'm sure that if the child needs to complete coursework, that's something that could be worked out for the teacher. Every teacher has their own standards, but we'll make sure to work with the child and their family if that's the case. Again, that's a case-by-case situation, but we do want our kids to connect as much as possible.
Another question here in regards back to COVID. If the CDC or the county mandates new changes, will EMCSD make those changes even if they are announced during the middle of the year?
That's a great question. And if I can just add a little clarification to my previous response in regards to our vaccination process. For our families, for our unvaccinated students, this will not be a requirement that we're testing unvaccinated students. What we will be doing when we send out our annual parent notifications, one of the notifications on there will be the ability for a parent to select whether they want their unvaccinated student to be part of the sample pooling. So if a parent is not comfortable with having their child tested, they can opt out. Therefore, they will not be part of that random sample testing. And if they would like their child to be a part of it, obviously, they would select yes, and they can actually opt out at any time as well as we go through the year. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I apologize for not including that in my previous answer. In regards to the changes in guidance and protocols, let me just start by saying that districts are required to always follow the most restrictive protocols. And so usually you have your CDC that will make changes, then your California Department of Public Health, and then your county's Department of Health usually kind of follow suit either right away or in weeks to follow. So for us, it's usually the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, which are the most restrictive and which we follow. So anytime there's a change to guidelines, if they become more restrictive, we are required to immediately put those restrictions into place. And so obviously, regardless of what time it is or where we are in the school year, if a restriction or guidance comes about through our health department and it requires more restrictive protocols to be in place, we actually will put that in place immediately. Now, if they make restrictions less restrictive, and so if they loosen up some of the requirements, then districts have the option to either immediately implement those new looser guidelines, or they can continue with their current guidelines and then phase them in a timely manner.
Our next question is in regards to school lunches and meals. Are the meals still going to be freshly made meals, or are these pre-packaged? Exactly how does that work?
Thank you for that question. Our school district has a central kitchen where we will prepare a lot of these meals fresh, scratch cooked, and we will seal them individually wrapped at the central kitchen before sending them out to the schools to increase the freshness of the meals that our students are eating. So the meals will continue to be individually wrapped, but the freshness will still be there. There will still be a lot of nutritional value there, as our central kitchen will be preparing these scratch cooked meals and sealing them individually at that point before sending them off to the schools for consumption the future day.
Another question back towards independent study. Will independent study have ELD supports?
Yes, so one of the components of the independent study program is the ELD curriculum. We will make sure to offer that component. I do want to point out that if a child is an English language learner, a similar approach is taken as to the one that Mr. Lopez Mena shared with the IEP. We do want to make sure that the independent study is a good fit for the child. So if additional supports are needed, the independent study program may not be the best scenario for that child to receive the supports that they need. So again, every child with unique needs is treated on a case-by-case basis. We will do our best to honor the parents' concerns and wishes, but we do want to do what's in the best interest of all students.
Next question is in regards to school supplies. Will students need to be bringing Chromebooks back and forth every day?
Yes, we're asking for students to be able to bring their Chromebooks back and forth. We want to make sure that they have access to the curriculum regardless of what might happen the next day. So we want all of our kids from the little ones all the way to 8th grade. There might be some cases where the teachers tell them that it's okay to leave the Chromebooks at home. Again, this is dependent on the teacher and the course, but we are expecting all of our kids to bring their Chromebooks back and forth to school daily.
The next question is in regards to classroom size. Do we have an idea of how many students will be in a classroom?
So it's not going to be a straight average across the entire district. So what we have a requirement to do per our guidelines is to ensure that we provide enough space and enough room for all students that want to return to the classroom to return. So as I shared a little earlier, we could have a primary class of 20 students because that's all we have enrolled in that class. And then we can have up to 30 students because our 4th through 8th grade class sizes maximums are 30. So we potentially could have a class of 30. Now, what's happening last week and all of this coming week is our custodians and our school admin are going through those classrooms and they're ensuring that desks fit in there, that there's enough safety and enough space for them, taking out things in the rooms, so larger objects that maybe don't need to be there in order to ensure that we can not only just fit all of our desks, because we've always been able to fit 30 desks in a classroom, but also give it a little more space in the room as well.
I have a couple questions in regards to special education. First question, my child has autism and refuses to wear a mask. Will they be allowed to attend school without a mask or will they need to stay home?
Yeah, this is a very good question and scenario that we faced during our reopening in the spring. And what we do is layer the supports to ensure that every student has the ability to access school. So for example, we may offer a face shield with a drape. If that isn't sufficient, then we will then put in place some safety protocols that we utilize during the reopening, which include limiting access to others when a student isn't wearing a mask. And so we understand that the best place for students is at school, and every single effort will be made to accommodate every individual need, including those that have a hard time or difficult time due to sensory issues, for example, wearing a mask. And it's something that we were able to work through very nicely during our reopening.
And the second question in regards to special education, will my child be able to participate in independent study while in special education?
Yes, so I mentioned earlier that traditionally students with an IEP were not allowed to participate in independent study, with the exception of those that had a medical need and a medical note. With the new legislation, every student must be given that opportunity to participate in independent studies, but we are required to ensure that independent studies will meet every single need that a student with an IEP has. And that's why the next step would be to hold an IEP meeting so that the team can determine and compare and make decisions on whether independent studies with related services supports will meet the student's individual needs, and will it also allow the district an opportunity to offer a FAPE.
I have a couple questions here in regards to feeding and meals again. The first one, will breakfast in the classrooms continue? And if so, how safe will it be to do so?
We will be continuing our breakfast in the classroom. because all of our desks have protective barriers around them, we feel that with the distancing happening with the students and the protective barriers there, that it is safe to do so. So we will be continuing with that because we know that nutritious meals is something that's very important to our students. So breakfast in the classroom will continue, as well as offering an opportunity for our students to consume meals during the school day.
And the second question in regards to meals, will independent study students be able to get meals?
Yes, they will, and we will be providing communication and information out to those students that opt into independent study, so they have more information on where they can go to access their meals and a schedule and a location for an opportunity to pick up their meals.
The next question is in regards to classroom cleanliness. How many times or days will the classrooms be cleaned, and will the children be given opportunities to wash their hands before and after lunch?
As far as the cleaning, there will be cleaning going on daily and obviously throughout the day as well, making sure that our desks are frequently wiped down and making sure that the fogging is there. And as we did in the spring, when we welcomed back about half of our students, our teachers worked with our students to make sure that we ensured hand washing breaks. Many of our classrooms are set up with sinks and soap and sanitizer. So we worked that into the schedule so we can make sure that we had adequate opportunities for our students to wash their hands to prevent the spread.
Next question is, can a student just wear a face shield instead of a face mask? As in like a plastic barrier shield over a mask.
Sure. Okay. So the requirements are they either have to wear a mask, so a mask that covers over your nose and under your chin. They can wear a shield, but they would still be required to wear a mask. The other option that meets the requirements per the County Department of Public Health would be then a shield that has a connected neck drape, like material at the bottom. Then that would be tucked into the student's shirt. And so the idea is to be able to contain any particles as they're speaking and so on. And so just a shield by itself would not do that and is not allowed per the protocols. But instead a mask with a shield is allowed because that's eye protection and mouth and nose protection, or a shield that has the built-in drape that tucks into a shirt.
This next question is, I have a student who's first year in a school setting who has autism. Will they be eligible for independent study? It's their first time in a classroom environment.
Yeah, so every student is eligible for independent study. What is required is that the IEP team convene, even though it may be a new student, to ensure that the recommendations that were originally made as an offer of FAPE from the district can also proceed via independent study. So once again, it's an individualized plan, and the team will come together to make those determinations, but every student is eligible for independent study.
I believe we have time for maybe one or two more questions. As of right now, I don't believe we have any new questions coming in. I believe we are, oh, it's the last question, right here we go. There's one. How frequent will restrooms be cleaned?
I can answer that. So again, back to protocols. Protocols state that that the entire campus should be cleaned daily. But again, we're going to take a little more cautious approach, and so we're ensuring that all of our restrooms are cleaned at least twice a day, but also monitored. And so if those need to be cleaned more frequently, then that's what we'll be doing. But we'll begin the year by ensuring that all of our restrooms, all of our high frequency areas such as our offices and our lounges and so on are wiped down multiple times in a day. but then obviously monitoring that, because if we feel that it needs more frequent attention, then we'll be providing that. But minimally twice a day.
And our final question for the evening, if we do not want our child to participate in breakfast in the classroom, are they able to opt out or maybe come to school a little later?
So breakfast in the classroom isn't a requirement that all students, participate in it. It's there for any student that would want to participate in it. But in regards to coming in a little later, that time when we implement breakfast in the classroom is part of our instructional day. And so what we would need is all students to be at school on time at our 8 o'clock start time, which is when we actually also begin our breakfast in the classroom. If there's concerns that parents may have, there would be a good opportunity for them to talk with their teacher, because maybe we can ensure that maybe there's some outside time or other options available.
And to piggyback off that point, Mr. Sollenbach, we served about 1,000 students in our extended learner pods since the start of the last school year. We never shut down any of those pods. There was feeding that happened in the classroom with those students. So for the parents that perhaps didn't participate in some of those child care pods, we did run them since the start of last school year through the entirety of the school year with feeding in the classroom. And so we feel that breakfast in the classroom continue in a very safe manner, especially with the desk barriers that we have around every student desk and the adequate distancing that we have in the classrooms.
All right, I lied. There was one last question, just because I don't think this was actually covered. Is about independent study. If we sign up for independent study, does our child stay with their home school, or are they part of a new school?
That's a good question. So we are going to do our very best that if a child signs up for independent study program and then the parent wishes to return to their home school, that we have space. Of course, that's not something that we can guarantee. We will do our best to ensure that the child can return to their home school and to the teacher, their previously assigned teacher. But if there's no longer space, we'll do our best to accommodate a child at the nearest school or with the nearest teacher.
And I believe we are out of time for questions.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope that many of your questions were answered, and we hope that tonight's presentation is giving you peace of mind when you think about the return. We want you to know that the safety of our school community is our #1 priority. I am confident that we are able to open up safely, and we'll do everything in our power to make sure that instruction and high quality instruction is our focus, as well as our social emotional relationships, while maintaining the safety of everyone. We thank you for joining us. We know that you might have a few more questions in the days and weeks to come leading up to the first day of school, August 25th. Please feel free to reach out. You can call any one of us here at the district office. You can call your school office. You call your school principals. You can reach out to us via Parent Square. We want to make sure that your questions are answered and you're ready to go. We cannot wait to see you on August 25th. Take care.